Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is day one of the DNC, so I apologize for uploading this video right in the middle of the DNC. If you're watching it, pause this video, watch it after the DNC because, again, I will be watching it at the same time as you guys, so I'm recording this at 7:47. Let's try to get out of here before 8 p.m. so I can rush downstairs and watch it and see what's happening. By the way, I will be live tweeting for the DNC. This will be done on my LT elections, so that's the Twitter ad. It's going to be at the end of the video, so actually it's right here. I have the end screen up. It's LT elections, no extra E. I'm going to be live tweeting my initial reactions to the DNC speeches and what was said good versus not, what I think will resonate with voters. So go ahead and check that out. Same thing with the Instagram. I might be posting a couple of things, but more so on the Twitter. I'm trying to ramp up my usage of that app itself. So today we're going to be taking a look at the election and pretty much where it stood in January 2020. So we're about 8 months away from when I made this prediction, and you can definitely see that there's a lot more red on this map than what we saw in the past. And not what we saw in the past, what we see now on my current predictions. Pretty much Donald Trump's numbers were much better just at the beginning of this year, and that's actually pretty surprising. I mean, Joe Biden at this point in time was still the narrow favorite. He was neck and neck with Bernie Sanders at this point. This is right before Bernie Sanders gained a lead over Joe Biden for the first time in Democratic primary history. This was as the debates were going on, but Joe Biden pretty much held a pretty significant lead over Donald Trump in terms of the national average. He was up 5-6% over Trump nationwide, which has now turned into an 8-9 point lead. So you can definitely see why the map has changed from January versus now. And some states have remained the same, and some states have not. But we're going to take a look at this map and then compare it to the August map that I just released following Kamala Harris being announced as the VP choice. So Donald Trump got 249 electoral votes in this prediction, January 1st. But in August, I believe August 14th, he only got 188. What was the reason for that? Losing a number of swing states. In this map, Biden didn't carry North Carolina, nor did he carry Florida. In this map, he did. He didn't carry Nebraska second in the previous prediction. He carried it in this one. But looking at this map, the margins also are important as well. You can see there's a lot more solid red on this January map versus this map in August. So you can see the clear change in terms of support from American voters in all of these states from January versus now. And you can see that a number of states have narrowed up, while some have remained the same. And some, have gotten a little bit more conservative for Maine's 2nd district, and some of them have remained the same in terms of being likely Democratic seats. We look at North Carolina, tilt Republican, now lean Biden. Florida, lean Trump, now lean Biden. Georgia, lean Trump, now a toss-up. Ohio and Iowa, lean Trump, now tilt. And this is a big move. Texas, likely Republican, now tilt for the GOP. Arizona, tilt Democrat, now lean Democrat. So, looking at all of these states, not even mentioning the states that are solid for the GOP. Montana, Missouri, Utah, Indiana, Mississippi, South Carolina. Previously safe, Alaska included, now considered to be likely. And what's the reason for that? Well, if we're seeing increased black turnout, that'll definitely drive up numbers in South Carolina and Mississippi. Absolutely. We could come back to 2012 numbers. Same thing in Indiana and Missouri. If Biden's just able to win over 4% of voters in both of those states, he wins, and he doesn't win, he brings the margin down below 15%, which is enough to make it a likely state. Same thing in Montana. Utah, because of Mitt Romney's, formal opposition to Donald Trump, whether it's in the Senate or it's within his speeches, pretty much these people know that Mitt Romney does not like Donald Trump. And Mitt Romney did very well in Utah compared to Donald Trump's 2016 performance. Donald Trump didn't even get a majority in Utah, despite Mitt Romney carrying it with 75% of the vote 4 years prior. In Alaska could very well narrow down as well. It's not a swing state. It just could be closer than before. We didn't account for that. When I was looking at this map, the Trump campaign was definitely at a high point, or at least higher than where they are right now. They were pretty much locked down in Texas. They were locked down in a number of other states, including other Senate races as well. What they really needed to focus on was the Rust Belt. They didn't really need to play too much defense. They needed to play in North Carolina and maybe Arizona, but Georgia, Florida, Ohio, and Iowa were roughly lean margins, which is honestly not too bad for Donald Trump, considering that he only carried Florida by 1%, meaning this could fluctuate anywhere between 1 to 5%. Yes, these two states are narrowing down, but I think everyone realized that Hillary Clinton was one candidate who could lose these states by pretty significant margins, and Joe Biden was not someone to repeat that. but Donald Trump still had the narrow edge in those states. While he does lead in Iowa and Ohio, Georgia I couldn't even characterize. Despite the state going by 6% to Donald Trump in 2016, I can no longer make a rating in this race. In Ohio and Iowa, Trump carried these by nearly 10% in 2016. They are now tilt, which means they are less than 1% of a margin. North Carolina and Florida have flipped, and based off the polling data, Florida should be likely. So if you keep that all in mind, I'm actually being a little bit more conservative in my estimate for Florida. Even at this point in time, Biden was doing well in Florida polling data. So I don't blindly follow the polling data as some people might suggest. I'm just saying that generally based off voting trends and more accurate data from what we saw in 2016, spoiler alert, the polls were not wrong in 2016, but looking at the 2020 election data, all of it's indicating that Biden is doing much better than where he was at this point in time. I mean, Nevada has become likely for the Democrats. New Mexico has narrowed up. I shouldn't have rated it as safe back in January, and I've adjusted for that. It definitely should be likely, but it could be safe depending on whether or not Biden does a little bit better than where he is right now. But I'd say that this map is fairly accurate based off where the Americans are voting. I mean, Texas has gotten a little bit more to the right based off recent data that we've seen. That was not out when I made this prediction. But we likely will see a map very similar to this one if it holds true on election day compared to this one. I mean, this is a little bit more of a better chance for Donald Trump. I think this is actually one of the lesser likely scenarios, just given that Donald Trump has pretty much pushed away a lot of voters in North Carolina and Florida and narrowed up Texas. I mean, the Republican Party, like I said, if you watch today's video, pulled out of ads in Michigan and Pennsylvania. That's one thing that stayed consistent. The entire Rust Belt, including Minnesota, have remained likely for the Democratic Party. And that's because Joe Biden's numbers haven't really fluctuated much in these states. I mean, they've pretty much held solid numbers for him since the beginning of the campaign season. And what's the reason for that? Joe Biden appeals to these voters better than Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden won these states in the primary. He's approved of by voters here, even if they aren't voting for him. And also, based off the COVID-19 response, that was not a thing when I made this initial prediction. Black Lives Matter movement, yes, was a thing, but it wasn't as big as it is today. COVID-19 wasn't happening. The economy was doing much, much better. And still, Donald Trump was losing. And honestly, that's true. I mean, Donald Trump still has pushed away that 1% of voters that put him over the top in these Rust Belt states on top of more voters than that. I mean, Joe Biden definitely can appeal to Rust Belt voters better than Donald Trump. And if we look at the Rust Belt itself, COVID-19 has only made it worse for Donald Trump. Gretchen Whitmer's approval rating is going up. Tony Evers' approval rating is going up. All of these officials in the Rust Belt are doing very well in terms of their handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. And a lot of people are approving of it, even if they are Republican voters. I mean, Gretchen Whitmer and Joe Biden share roughly the same approval amongst Michigan voters. Donald Trump is underwater in Michigan by double digits in terms of approval. So who do you think they're going to back? The Democratic governor and the Democratic candidate for president versus the incumbent Republican who they elected once by only 11,000 votes, who they don't even approve of now. You're probably going to choose the Democrat. I mean, if we're looking at these states, they haven't changed much. This area has always been a Democratic area just because of the fact that Joe Biden appeals to these centrist voters. Arizona, especially a great state for centrist Democrats, appeal to these centrist voters enough that they could actually win these states on a presidential level. I mean, Arizona hasn't gone to a Democrat since 92. So, since 96. So Arizona, for decades, has gone with the Republican Party, went for Mitt Romney by a very solid margin, and all of a sudden Donald Trump narrowed it up. But Hillary Clinton wasn't exactly the one narrowing it up. It was purely Donald Trump. But when Joe Biden offers an alternative to some of these Republicans who don't feel right voting for Donald Trump, that's funny, right? But some of them who don't necessarily agree with what Donald Trump stands for, but agree with traditional Republican values may suck it up and vote for Joe Biden this time around. On top of the fact that there's a number of changing demographics in Arizona, in Texas, in Colorado, and Nevada that are all benefiting the Democratic Party. So that's why we're seeing sort of a leftward push in this region. Nevada and Arizona and Texas all getting bluer. As for the South as well, increased African-American turnout's a huge thing. Mississippi and South Carolina go from safe to likely. North Carolina, Florida go from lean tilt Trump to lean Biden. Georgia goes from lean Trump, not even to tilt, but to toss up completely. So while the Rust Belt region has pretty much stayed unaffected, or I guess you could say in terms of the characterization, this is anywhere between 5 to 15%. So definitely has fluctuated a little bit upwards, but pretty much stayed the same in terms of its characterization. The entire southern region of the United States hasn't. That has to do with the fact that minority turnout is going to be higher. Joe Biden's appeal to these voters is much better in terms of centrist and moderate Republican voters as well. And also, we're amidst a global pandemic. His approval rating, Donald Trump's approval rating, is dropping in a number of these states. the handling of the situation from Republican governors is dropping. So when these voters have a bad taste in their mouth from Republican governors, they may not be too inclined to vote for a Republican on the presidential level. They may not vote for Joe Biden, but any vote that isn't for Trump is going to, hurt his campaign in these solid Republican states. It could very well narrow them up to be likely. Now, I don't think that Mississippi would be a state that Biden's campaign could win. I think that they're pretty much going to cap off around 42 or 43%, and Donald Trump's numbers could go below 55, 54, and possibly be a 10-point margin of victory. We could see something similar to the 2012 numbers in Mississippi and South Carolina. That was enough to make these likely states. I mean, South Carolina and Alaska were also likely states in 2016, so this shouldn't come as a surprise to many people. But the fact that Donald Trump has pretty much lost 2 states, practically 3, considering that Georgia is no longer characterized there, it's not just the states that are flipping. It's the margins that matter. A lot more red on this map versus this one. And it can only get worse from this point on. The convention is happening today. Joe Biden's likely to receive a convention boost. So there's a lot that's going to be negatively impacting President Trump that he may not be able to recover. With 78 days to the election, we can see as the months progress, Donald Trump's numbers get worse. And if this trend continues, we could be in for a possible Biden landslide on Election Day. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. Like I said, I will be live tweeting the DNC in 2 minutes at 7:58, so you're going to get this a little bit late, but go ahead and check it out and drop it a follow. On the screen, there's a video you can watch and then a playlist for my 2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.